So we're here today with Christie Lea Thompson. She is with ChristieLegal, which is a divorce and custody mediation firm, and she's also a paralegal located in Cottage Grove, correct?
Yes,
Great. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
thank you.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to talk with you because people are, um, in this time of kind of upheaval in the world. One of the things that is kind of out there as far as people not necessarily getting along through COVID-19 is one of the reasons why people are getting divorced or choosing to end their marriages. Did you see in 2020, Christie, did you see divorce pick up, and has it continued to pick up in 2021?
Yes, the real pickup started about a week after the governor um, released us from the really strict restrictions. So that would have been in like the middle of June.
Okay.
And honestly, the people divorcing, the massive amount of people divorcing has not stopped since
Okay.
last June. I mean, it's been consistent, and I don't see it slowing down until maybe like next Valentine's Day. Because the normal progression of divorce is that people like they kind of decide that they would like to divorce most often after Thanksgiving. I don't know if it's spending time with the in-laws or what, but something happens and then they're like, I need to get divorced. And there are a lot of divorces from like the first, second week of December, all the way to Valentine's Day. And I think, maybe the husbands bring home flowers or something like
Okay.
that. And then the divorces temporarily decrease around Valentine's Day. And
Wow.
they
Okay.
don't pick up that much after Valentine's Day.
So chocolate is kind of the chocolate and flowers are kind of the miracle cure for divorcing couples. Is that the?
That's the only thing I've been able to come. Well,
Okay.
actually, what it really is hope. Like, the women think, oh, look at he does love me. He brought me flowers or went out, planned an evening out. And
Okay.
yeah, it's been consistent for 8 years.
Wow. Okay. So you've been doing this for 8 years?
Yep, I've been working in family law actually for 9 years, but have been kind of tracking it for 8 years.
Okay. Okay. So Christy, walk us through how you are different from someone who is a traditional divorce attorney. In as far as your service, Christie Legal, how do you find clients? How are you different from them? And why do they come to you for a mediation service rather than just going to the straight to the divorce attorney?
Thanks. Okay, so there's a couple of ways that I'm different. First of all, because I'm a mediator and not an attorney, I can work with both parties. So that means that people who are working with me don't need to like both get lawyers. They just can work with me. And because I am, an unbiased third party, I just, help people reach agreements. I can tell them what the laws are, and then I help them reach agreements that are consistent with the laws. And so they're only paying one person. After I help them reach agreements on everything, which could take, I've had some people reach agreements on everything in 1 hour. Amazing.
Wow.
And
On the back of an
yeah,
envelope, right here. Yeah.
and then I've had some people, take like 40, 50 hours to reach agreements on everything. So it's a huge range. And so, but after would they reach agreements on everything, then because I'm also a paralegal, I write their documents for their court case.
Okay.
And I write what are called pro se litigant documents. Pro se is Latin for yourself. So my clients are being their own attorney.
Hmm.
and that's why they don't need attorneys. And so I write the documents and they go to a notary and sign them. And then I help them file the documents with the court, prepare them for the court process. If people don't have children, the court process is literally mailing the documents to the judge, and that's it. You're
Wow.
done. Now, if they have kids, they will have to have one hearing. The hearing will be about 15 minutes. The judge is going to ask them a few questions about, how, if like they've already been doing the custody arrangement, like how is it working? Just anything the judge has questions about, because when there are children involved, really the judge doesn't care that much about the parents. The judge cares about the kids.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole purpose of the hearing, is just make sure the kids are going to be okay.
And these are minor children, correct? So not adult children, but some
Yeah.
under 18. Okay.
Yeah, only people who are 18 or under and not graduated from high school.
Okay. All right. That's
And
good to clarify that. Yeah. Okay.
and then after that hearing, they're divorced. It is currently taking about 2 months to get a hearing. So it's not, an immediate thing. However, when you use the mediation and paralegal services process, it's going to save you at least 6 months in the process, because the regular divorce process, you have to serve documents and then the person has 45 days to respond. And then you have one hearing, then you have another hearing,
Yeah.
and you're going to have to do mediation anyways. It's court
Right.
ordered.
Okay.
So you might as well just start with it.
Okay. So how does your service differ from going to an attorney, other than I'm assuming it's a lot more affordable to go to you versus going to a divorce attorney, both parties having an attorney, something like that. Um, how is it differ? How does it differ? And why would people go to an attorney as if and not you?
Yeah, so it is
Yeah.
much more affordable. I charge 110 per hour for both parties.
Okay.
And so that's like $55 an hour per person.
Sure.
And attorneys charge anywhere from $200 to $550 per hour per person,
Mhm.
because each person has to have his or her own attorney. So essentially, I save people at least $500 per hour. That is a car payment per hour that I save people.
Wow. All right. That's
Now,
something else. Yeah.
yeah, and
Mhm.
and then that's really, really important, because often people post divorce, when they don't do it this way, they end up in a lot of debt, because the attorney bills very easily can be 10 grand, but they can be much more than that.
Mhm.
So you've got this lawyer bill that you have to pay on monthly, and you probably had to charge the retainer fee. And also, you guys had to divide those debts. And so you might actually have more debt post divorce than you had during the marriage, because maybe the other person created the debt. But guess what? You're married, so you get half of it, or possibly even more than
Yeah.
half of it if you earned more than the other person. And so it's like debt upon debt. And guess what? I used to work in bankruptcy law, and one of the top three causes of bankruptcy is divorce.
Okay.
None of my clients go into bankruptcy. I've only had one that has had to get credit card debt.
Mhm.
So it's just more affordable.
Right.
However, there are definitely reasons to hire attorneys. So, like when the parties are not getting along, I can't help them. um when one party feels like the other party is not being honest, then I could help them, but I would suggest that I don't, because then you want to hire an attorney who's going to advocate for you, and do subpoenas to request financial documents, and to make sure that the other party is being
Yeah.
honest.
Do you have couples who are, they they keep you, they call you later and they're like, Christie, she's hiding money from me, or, they try to get you on their side sort of thing. Any of those kind of like backroom, deals where they're trying to get you to kind of come over to their side, or does that happen?
Um, I have not had that happen yet. I
Okay.
did kind of wonder if one of my clients was lying to the other party, and and that was kind of tough. And I did, suggest to the party who I thought was being lied to. I said, I'm not sure that the other party is being honest with you, and I suggest that you get an attorney. And this person did not want to do that, but I just still, told the person
Yeah.
what I was perceiving. And then, that's the thing, is it's up to the clients what they want to do with information I give them.
Hmm.
Because I don't give a legal opinion, and I don't advocate for either party. So, even if one party wanted me to get on their side or whatever, I can't do that because
Right.
I'm a mediator. I'm, an alternative dispute resolution professional. I'm unbiased third party.
Okay. Okay.
And
No
yeah.
one's ever tried to bribe you?
Nobody's tried to bribe me.
Here, I'll give you $100 if under the table. No. So do you have, are most people amicable as far as when they come to a mediator? It strikes me as something where if someone has reached the point in their relationship where they no longer want to be married to someone, and it's not really a, oh gosh, she is a terrible person, or he's abusive, or he's an awful person sort of thing. If it's just something where you're just not getting along and it's like, okay, we've got 30, 40 years left in our lives, let's not be miserable, let's just break up and be friends, let's just be friends. How are you getting most people kind of getting along okay? Were they getting along well enough to go to a mediator and just hash it out? Or do you get, the Bickersons come in and they're just like bickering back and forth? And how prevalent is that? How prevalent is it to be, you have to like separate people from each other?
So I get the whole gamut.
Yeah.
Um, like I have gotten people who are really just like, we like each other, but like not enough to be married
Okay.
anymore. We've grown apart. That was the couple where it only took like an hour for them to reach agreements on everything.
Yeah.
Um, but then I have, people where there's been abuse, physical and mental,
Yeah.
and the at least one of the parties doesn't trust the other party. And so that's when we're, like into the 30, 40, 50 hours of mediation. And, and sometimes, the, more abusive relationships, there will be fun, custody issues to handle
Yeah.
too. And so that, gets long and complicated. And should the parenting time be supervised,
Ooh,
and
yeah.
spousal maintenance, should there be spousal maintenance and how much is it? And
Or alimony, right? Is that the same thing?
well, so in Minnesota, it's called spousal maintenance.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And, but like I would say like at least 50% of my clients are just, the people who are, we don't get along anymore and they're not very acrimonious. Um, one thing that's really has been great about COVID-19 pandemic for my business is being online like this.
Yeah.
And being online has allowed a party who has been abused and maybe doesn't know how to advocate for him or herself. And abuse can happen to men too. That's why I said him or herself.
Yeah.
That party can be in a totally different building, and because that person's not physically present, they don't have that fear of the person. And so he or she can advocate for him or herself better. And which honestly, if you have one of the parties not advocating, then the process either isn't going to work well or is going to produce a really bad result.
Sure.
Like either no result or a bad result, like where the other person's
Mhm.
taken advantage of.
Along those lines, Christie, do you see the technology that has really blossomed quite a bit? I know we've had Zoom, we've had FaceTime, we've had these things before COVID, but now in kind of as we end this horrible time, and we come out of the pandemic, is it something that you see just becoming a fixture? Is it becoming a permanent thing where, um, you know, Mrs. Johnson doesn't want to be in the same room for her physical safety with Mr. Johnson, um, and we're just going to do it this way now? We're not going to have her come to this center or your office and possibly risk her life or just psychologically be damaged from having to be in the same room with an abusive husband.
Yeah, and that's actually the more important part is the emotional safety
Mhm.
because, um, narcissists and other abusive people normally act very nice in public. So they're not gonna, be usually not gonna belittle the other person,
Yeah.
try to manipulate the person, scream at the person, whatnot, beat the person. Um, but the emotional safety is just as important. And I am still going to be mostly online because of that. Because about 6 months ago, I realized, wow, this is really great for that reason. And I'm going to give people a financial incentive to meet with me online. I'm not exactly, after all this is all over and,
Yeah.
everything's totally safe and all that. Because, financial incentives usually work and to have change behavior
Mhm.
and and honestly it saves me a lot of time. I can be more productive and help more people divorce or handle custody cases if
Yeah.
I'm not driving all over tarnation, and it saves my clients a lot of time.
Mhm.
They don't have to drive to my office in Woodbury. I do have offices in other places, but then again I'm driving there and they're having to pay for my drive time to those other offices.
Sure.
Um, it's just much better. Um, and like, in the old days, a year ago, the way that they would, make things better for people who were abused was have one person in one room and one person in another room. So you know what that means? That means that the mediator is using three rooms.
Yeah.
Or no, excuse me, two rooms. And
Running back and
so
forth between
yeah,
people.
I'm running back and forth, and there's it's a huge disadvantage because the parties never actually have to look at each other, and just see each other's facial expressions. And I mean, some people, because of their mental health issues, can't read facial expressions, but it usually helps to mediate when people can see each other's emotions.
Right.
And if they're in two different rooms, that's not going to happen.
Do you have like a preview if someone wanted to come to Christie Legal and get divorced and have a mediation process in their divorce? Um, First of all, how do they do it? Do they typically both initiate it at the same time? Is it Mrs. Johnson says or Ms. Johnson says, I'm going to ditch Bob over here. Please help me. And then you try to coordinate some sort of meeting, or is it usually Bob and Susan come to you together and then you kind of work it out from there?
Well, it happens both ways. I would say most off, actually 50-50. So half the time, like one person wants the divorce and they're like, I would really rather, do it an affordable way. And can you get my spouse on board with this? And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I mean, what I'll do is, give you both a free initial consultation And, during the initial consultation, I'll say to your spouse, you're going to get divorced no matter what. And you can either do it the lawyer way, where you guys are probably going to end up in debt
Yeah.
and pay like $600 an hour for the two attorneys.
Yeah.
And it's going to take you at least a year. Or you could do it my way, where it's 110 per hour. You're going to save at least 6 months in the divorce process. And the communication's going to be like this.
Hmm.
Like, it's going to be like you guys communicate with me versus like, one of you communicates with your lawyer, who then, communicates with the other lawyer, and then communicates with the other party. And then, like
Yeah.
all back and forth creates a lot of billable hours.
Right. And writing an email is billable
Absolutely.
for an attorney.
For me as well. Emails, research, writing documents, talking to the parties. And now, but I do, half the time just get both people that are just like, yeah, we need a divorce and we want to do it the, least expensive way and the quickest way.
Yeah.
And, we heard about your service.
Okay. Who initiates, and then we'll kind of get into more specific questions here that we talked about, but who typically initiates the divorce? I've heard it's majority of time it's women. Is that still correct?
I do think that maybe my service might be unique, because, the people who I can help are, less conflictual. I do actually have slightly more men contact me.
Okay.
Um, I could hypothesize as to why, but I just I have no factual basis for it, so I'm not even going to state
Mhm.
state my ideas.
Okay.
I mean, divorce in general, maybe more women are filing. There would be definitely, I know the reason that women are more likely to file. It's because, um, men know that as soon as the divorce happens, it's likely they won't see their children as much. And they know that, it's more likely than not that they will see their kids less than half the time.
Right. Right.
And so the man has more to lose with the
Yeah.
divorce, at least as far as the children goes. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, but there is definitely a trend towards joint 50-50 parenting time,
Hmm.
but it doesn't always happen.
Hmm. And Minnesota, correct me if I'm wrong, is a no fault state, correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
So you could be cheating on your wife left and right, and it's not like she can say, well, he's a philanderer over here, I get the kids because he's around town a lot. It's just, it doesn't matter what leads you to the divorce table. Is that correct? It's a no fault sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good thing.
Mm.
And it's actually a really good thing for whoever is the lesser earning party. Because in Wisconsin, you have to wait 4 months before you can start the divorce process. Like, you file the initial documents, but then nothing actually starts up for 4 months.
Okay.
And in a lot of the Southern Bible Belt states, you have to wait an entire year. Now, how is that going to go down if you have filed for divorce, so your spouse knows you want a divorce, but you have to live with him or her for 4 to 12 months, and you are financially dependent upon that person, so you can't just move out? There's definitely at least going to be some minor emotional abuse, but it could be a lot worse than that. And so it's a huge disadvantage to either have to prove fault or to have to wait. It's the negatives outweigh the positives.
Christy, do you think that's related to um, possible religious reasons why, or cultural, social reasons why in certain states?
Yeah, that's what I've read. And
Hmm.
that's why I call those states the Bible Belt.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I've read, is that it's, where conservative Christian values are very strong, that's the states where there will be a waiting period. And the states absolutely positively know that it is going to discourage marriage. I mean, divorce. And that's
And
why,
marriage, for that matter. Yeah. Well,
well, yeah, it will discourage marriage because people will be like, wait a minute, it's even harder to get out.
what sort of training, Christie, have you gone through to be able to be a mediator? You've got the paralegal stuff down cold, where you have, okay, here's the forms that need to be filled out. Here's the legal process for doing this. You know all of that, the legalities of it. But the emotional aspect of this is undeniable. This is not just a business transaction. This is people's lives we're dealing with, and this is a very emotional upheaval in their lives. How do you feel, or how do you prepare to do that as a professional, and how do you keep your feelings, your emotions out of it? Perhaps if you are in a situation where you feel like one party is probably at fault, and how do you just, you have to be neutral. How are you trained for that, and kind of how does that work for you?
Sure. And so for the paralegal skills, I have both a BA and paralegal certificate from Hamlin University here in the Twin Cities.
Hmm.
And and then I did work under attorneys for a couple of years. And then for the mediation, I did a mediation program with Dan Simon of Simon Mediation. He trains people both in Minnesota and California. Lucky guy goes to California every
Nice.
winter. And so, how I handle what's probably the worst thing that will happen to most people,
Yeah,
because a divorce is the death of a relationship. And, so it's really traumatic. And I just remind myself all the time that this is probably the worst thing that's ever going to happen to these people. So I have to be really, nice to them, patient with them, because, people who are divorcing are very hurt and angry.
yeah,
And when we're hurt and angry, we're not our best selves. And we do things we probably wouldn't normally do. And sometimes I do get the brunt of that. And but I just keep in mind, this is probably the worst thing they'll ever go through.
yeah.
And I do always offer my clients referrals to a psychologist and a life coach, because divorce is one of the biggest transitions you will have in your life. And it's really helpful to have a professional help you through the transition. And you'll be much more effective with your transition with professional help.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, One of the other, not traumatic things, but one of the other largest decisions of your life, possibly your biggest financial transaction of your life, is purchasing a home. So, as a licensed realtor here in Minnesota and Wisconsin now, um, divorce and real estate property is something that always comes up when someone is breaking up, when someone is dissolving their marriage. How is home ownership influenced, or how is that affected by a divorce? Do most people have to sell the house if they get divorced, or is there something like, hey, honey, you get the house, I get everything else, or how does that typically work?
Okay. Well, so when two people come to me and they're gonna divorce, actually the first question I ask is, do you own a house? Because yeah, it is usually the biggest asset that both of them own together. And so that kind of starts the conversation. And then, so what do you guys want to do with the house? And then if one of them wants to stay in the house, I always say, have you met with a mortgage banker, to make sure you can afford this mortgage payment? Because I have had more than one person think that they're going to, get a, refi and get the mortgage, and they, earn half of what they need to earn, take over that house.
Right.
And so, And then, if they're like, we're gonna sell the house and split the proceeds. And I'm like, okay, do you have a real estate agent? Um, and so the way, and when somebody is selling their home during the marriage, I hope that their real estate agent, either, and they're my clients. I hope that the real estate agent either knows me or gets to know me, and so that they can give me some information about the house that I can
Yeah.
use, documents. What we do is we take all the assets and they're a pot. So we've got the house, we've got the investment accounts, the retirement accounts, vehicles, and that would be, minus the loans, the value of vehicles,
Mhm.
the jewelry, the household goods, everything. And let's say all the assets together are $1 million. Well, then under Minnesota law, each of them needs to walk away with half of the total marital assets. And so that's about 500,000. And so then we, start from the point of, well, what does each of you want? And then we divide it that way and see how equal or unequal it is. And then we work from there.
Okay.
And, I hear from real estate agents that houses right now are selling for, like at least $20,000 above market value. And that actually has been a problem for some of my divorcing clients. Um, because, like I said earlier, when you're divorcing, you might have more debt than when you were married. And so it's kind of hard to come up with the extra 20,000 that you can't, get a loan for, because, the appraisal is, only what's the house is worth, and that's what you can
Right.
get a loan for. Maybe you could speak to that, a
Mhm.
little better.
Yeah, well, and definitely right now, the market as we speak in late March, early April of 2021, the market right now is very tight, very low inventory. It's about half of what it was last year as far as homes on the market. So if someone were to, let's just say, sell their house today, it is probably going to go for above list price. So let's just say you have a house that you list for $400,000. I would say a good maybe 5 to 10% above that is a realistic thing. The only aspect of that that's problematic for people is it needs to appraise for that for that. So for the asking price. So if it's 420 and it only comes in and it appraises at 410, then there needs to be some negotiation as far as who makes up that difference. Is it the buyer? Is it the seller? Um, because you're not going to be able to get the loan for 420 if you're financing it. Um, so when it comes to selling the property, yeah, it's great. If someone comes in and offers cash of $500,000, then wonderful. But more than likely, it's going to be financed. It needs to appraise for that price. So, um, but what we really are seeing right now, Christie, is that people who purchased their home for, let's just say, even like 5 years ago, for let's just say, you know, just to throw out a number, 300. Um, Even month to month right now, things are exponentially increasing in value. The question is not, if that bubble is going to pop, it's when that bubble is going to pop. And as we've seen time and time again in the past, that bubble is going to pop, and the property, that asset that they think is now worth 500,000 is going to be worth less. So if people are going to get divorced, not to be dark about this, but if people are going to get divorced and need to sell their home as part of the divorce process, this is probably a really good time for it. I hate to say that. I know it's after Valentine's Day, but the candy and the flowers have probably worn off by now. And it's just a really stellar time, especially if you're downsizing. So let's just say you have a 5-bedroom home in Lakeville and the kids are gone, or you're splitting up parenting. boy, if you are both downsizing to a townhome for each of you can probably make out pretty well if you don't require that 5-bedroom home.
Yeah.
Usually, like you said, the one spouse is probably not able to make up the payment all by his or herself.
Another thing to know about real estate and divorce is that even if the house was purchased by just one party before the marriage, you do have a marital interest in that party because you were married to the person who bought it for part of the time that he or she owned it.
Yeah.
And so that's something that will need to be discussed and taken into consideration. That's the only non-marital or premarital asset that comes into play during divorce. All of the other things, like if you bought a car before the marriage, or if you had like a certain portion of your retirement funds or investment account already existing in the account before your marriage, those things would not be included in the divorce. If you inherited things, that's not going to be divided during the divorce.
Okay.
But people do have a marital interest in the other person's non-marital real estate property.
We talked about kind of that time frame, that magic window of Thanksgiving to Valentine's Day. And again, in real estate, Christie, it's something where a lot of times we will see a lot of homes come on the market right after the first of the year. People get through the holidays. Mom and dad have gone home. The grandparents have gone home back to Florida or wherever after Christmas or the holidays. And all right, Bob, you got to go. Bob, we're getting a divorce.
Poor Bob. You keep
Poor
talking.
Bob. Bob was a jerk. So, uh, so that window, is there any other time? Does it wax and wane throughout the year? I mean, is it people that are just trying to? Is it for the kids? Is it for just the home life as far as trying to keep things kind of on the right plane? During the holidays, people don't want to break up, but once all of that's over, play ball.
So honestly, the best time to divorce is as soon as possible. Like, make sure that you really try to work on the relationship, that you do marital counseling,
Yeah.
or maybe counseling with your pastor, um, or try to talk to the other person multiple times about the things that you're not super happy about. But if you've done everything that you can to try to improve the relationship and it's not working, then you need to get out as soon as you can, because the longer that you stay married, the longer that you are going to be financially responsible for the other person.
Right.
And they could get a bunch of credit card debt. They could start a business and, like, create lots of business debt, which then you might be partially responsible for. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And besides the financial aspect, there's the emotional aspect and maybe safety aspect. When you're not in a good relationship, um, negative things are more likely to happen.
Hmm.
Emotional abuse, physical abuse. And if you are not concerned about the emotional and physical abuse to you, if you have children, then, please think about that for your children,
Right.
because that will harm them for the rest of their lives.
It will.
And they role model what they see growing up for the rest of their life. And, you don't want to role model for them um, unhealthy behaviors.
Right. Dysfunctional family situation. Um, how often do you meet with the children as well?
No, no.
No.
So children should be kept out of divorce. Um, like, if you're in a highly conflictual divorce process, then they have special mechanisms to have the kids, speak to the court.
Sure.
And but I had a couple who I was mediating with in their home, which I don't do very often. Um, and their young adult kids were there. And they kept trying to bring the kids into it. And I was just like, oh no, I can see half the problem here. Um,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, keep your kids out of the divorce.
Right.
The divorce is between you and the other party, it's not between your kids. And psychologists say, don't talk badly about the other parent,
Hmm.
because remember that your children are half that other parent.
Yep.
And so if you're talking badly about the other parent, your kids might
They
miss
take it personally.
yeah, they might misperceive that there's something bad about them.
Right. Right. Or they caused the divorce, or they caused the problem. And if
Oh,
only, if only they had done something. You had mentioned earlier, Christy, that it doesn't matter if the finances are kept separate in a marital relationship. And I know in recent decades that this has become more prevalent thing that, um, one spouse has a checking account, the other spouse has a checking account. Um, why does that not matter? Shouldn't that make it more of a clean break?
that's what I would say about 25% of my clients who are calling me think, especially the younger people. They say, we have never commingled our finances, and they even use the good legal word commingle.
Hmm.
And, so this will be really easy. And, I just want to keep all my stuff, and he or she wants to keep all her stuff. And I'm like, well, I mean, we can definitely write it up that way, but we still need to put in the documents what everybody has. But we're just walking away with our own stuff. That's fine. But the judge needs to know what everybody has, because his or her job is to enforce the law. And so, you guys could divide it unequally, but then the judge needs to know that you're dividing it unequally and make sure that the party who is getting less knows that they have a right to more. And so it doesn't matter if every checking account, every investment account, every retirement account is separate. I still, or an attorney will still need to know all of that information, and we'll need to get that into the documents. As a matter of fact, 3 weeks ago, I had somebody call me and they tried to do the divorce on their own, and they did not have any of one of the parties' financials in the documents that they wrote.
Hmm.
And the judge not only told them that those documents are not acceptable, but get this, the judge put their case into the conflictual divorce process, taking it out of the easy, amicable joint divorce process. And they have a trial scheduled for, I think, like maybe a month from now.
Ooh.
Only 5% of divorce cases go to trial.
Ooh.
So by trying to do it on their own and by not giving that financial
Like
information,
with a jury?
yeah, no, it'll be a
Okay.
judge trial.
All right.
But it's like, wow, you messed
Wow.
up a lot when you go from easy joint divorce to trial. Like,
Don't
I
do
just,
that. Try to avoid
yeah,
that if at all possible.
yeah. He was like, "Can you help us?" And I was like, "No, because now you guys have a conflictual court case, and
Yeah.
now I have to refer you to an attorney." And he was like, "No, no, we don't want an attorney." I'm like, "I can't help you anymore." And I gave him attorneys to contact, and now it's going to cost them like probably at least $5,000 to sort this out. Whereas if they had just come to me, in all likelihood, for $1,000 to $2,000, they could have had solid documents that the
Right.
judge would have signed, and they would have been divorced like 6 weeks ago.
Oh gosh. Oh boy. Do they have kids? Do they have children?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, and that's another thing. They didn't have like a good, the judge actually said to them, I don't even know what your custody agreement is.
wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of a basic thing. Um, Christy, do you have any same-sex relationships or divorces?
Oh, absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
I have done, I think it's 5 or 6 of them now,
Okay.
and, they are just the same
Yeah.
as any other divorce. And I am a member of the Quorum Chamber of Commerce,
Hmm.
which is the LGBT plus Chamber of Commerce for Minnesota. So I'm, totally safe. And,
Sure.
you will have to explain to me up front that it's not a man-woman
Mhm.
relationship. But after I understand that, I'll get it and I'll be right on task.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's exactly the same. The high divorce rate right now isn't caused by the pandemic. It's caused by the people who are divorcing now, they had bad relationships before the pandemic. Oh, because I mean, maybe they didn't know it was a bad relationship because, when things are going well, everybody can be good.
Yeah.
Now, when things go poorly, that's when you really know the truth about who a person is. And things have been going poorly for the past year. And a lot of people have found out that their spouse is not a cool person um, when times are tough. And then, the other thing that's happening now is the obvious, they weren't happy to begin with. And holy cow, no, I have to be stuck with this person who I wasn't happy with to begin with a lot more, hours per day.
Hmm.
And oh boy, we could get, put into another lockdown and, be stuck with this person 24 hours a day again. Oh, I want to prevent that. And I
Yeah.
know the way to prevent that is to get divorced, divide the assets, and get a different place to live.
If you had one word of advice for someone who is considering getting divorced or is kind of walking down that path right now, what would it be?
It would be if you have tried everything you can to save your relationship, get divorced as soon as possible and try to do it in the least conflictual way
Hmm.
because it will cost less and you'll spend less time in the court process.
Okay. Okay. Christy, if someone wanted to get a hold of you for your services or just that free consultation, how would they do that?
Yep. You can request a free initial consultation either by emailing me at christie@christielegal.net. And you could also go right to my Calendly tool. It's a up to 1 hour free initial consultation. And I can almost guarantee you that after you find out like the initial information of how it's going to go, and you're just going to feel better because knowledge is power.
Yeah. Okay. And then you have a website?
Oh, yes. My website is ChristieLegal.net, and Christie is CHRISTIE legal.
Yes.
And Christie Legal has a Facebook page. It's Christie Legal MN, and an Instagram, which is also Christie Legal MN,
Mhm.
and a Twitter, which is also Christie Legal MN. So you can see on there how people have reviewed my business and information that I put out to the public to help people who are thinking about divorce or have a custody situation, and kind of, see how I interact with the public.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Perfect. And also, they will have this video to review and to look at and see what a nice person you are and how much you care about this difficult challenge in people's lives. Well, Christy, I really appreciate your time today on this. This is an important issue that comes up for people, whether or not they are currently looking for real estate or dealing with that process. And I think just everyone should know um, what resources there are out there if they do find themselves in the situation, that you don't have to bankrupt yourself by going to an attorney. You can go to someone like ChristieLegal to mediate this very challenging time in your life, and hopefully come up with a, a meaningful and a suitable resolution to your issues. So again, we really appreciate it, and obviously the best of wishes to you.
I appreciate your time as well.